I think that we can start now.
Sweet.
Antony Muse, everybody.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be on this podcast to talk about Instagram.
That is all we're going to talk about today. Purely social media, Instagram, just all the greatest things influencing us.
Yeah, just really what's influencing us and like myself mostly is what I'm going to talk about.
It's your podcast.
Yeah,
it's on, you know.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Talk about myself the whole time?
Antony Has No Clue podcast with Hollis.
There we are. I should start titling them that. Forget HHNC number whatever. It's just gonna be the person's name has no clue.
HHNC. I just realized. Have you ever heard that 1975 song by a very similar name?
I haven't.
What's your opinion on the 1975?
Dude, I honestly have not listened to them.
You're kidding.
You can kill me for that. Yeah, I know it's like super popular.
I love it.
I know a bunch of people who like it. But
I'm not too cool to say I love the 1975. We actually not recently, like years ago, I went to a 1975 show and I was in like the front row and I was with one of my boys who's like well over 6 feet tall, and we were the only we had a different energy than everyone around us, and my friend was like 9 feet taller than everyone around us, and I think he ruined the show for like a number of people.
Damn.
But we had a great time.
You had a good time at least. That's important. How do you feel about, because I know you toured like a lot. How many, or 2 tours you went on?
Yeah, I've been on 2 tours, and then I've like jumped on and off stuff, but I've been on 2 full tours, yeah.
So how do you feel about COVID? Because that, I mean, you're so much more like surrounded by like the musician life than I am. Mm-hmm. And I just miss going to concerts myself, but you literally like, that was part of your work.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
I think it sucks, obviously. I was supposed to be on tour with this artist from like before COVID started. I think it was from like early summer to like after Christmas. And it was like going to be a world tour. I was really, really excited for it. But I mean, there's a reason I didn't go on it, and I'm sure I'll go on other stuff like that eventually. But it's a huge bummer. I mean, I want shows to come back. I like, as much as you say that I'm like in that world, I also just like going to shows.
Yeah.
Like it's very fun for me to go to that sort of stuff. So like, and yeah, to just have that all be done is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gonna be tough. Did you notice when COVID hit, like there was a shortage of jobs for you at all?
I'm trying to think about when it first started. Like, I don't think when it first started there was a shortage of jobs. So I was actually like creative directing for a couple brands at the time, and I was like running all of their shit for a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then like as people realized the pandemic was like really serious, right? Like a couple months in, and like it wasn't going to end anytime soon. That's when it sort of like got hard for me. And then I actually stopped doing like even Muse stuff for a while, and like I was so like mentally done that I just like didn't do anything for probably like 6 months.
Yeah. I could see that happening, like as people are like, oh, this is not just going to be like a short thing. Everything paused.
Yeah.
Also for like a second there, it's just like, is it morally okay to put things out right now? Like I was kind of like going through that myself.
Totally. I mean, well, it's a weird time to like, right at the beginning especially, it was like weird to navigate that. But I think like the equal and opposite to that was like people did sort of realize later that like if they can't tour, they can only make money off of their merch. So then there was like actually quite a bit of work to do, which is nice.
Yeah. Do you know there's been such a trend to release as much merch as possible?
Oh yeah, I'm anti that.
Yeah.
I'm not with
you
that.
Have thoughts on that?
But I think that a lot of artists, like people don't realize that a lot of artists will just like make their merch with, you know, the whatever company runs their merch at their label, right? And like some guy at that company will design their merch for them. And I think like it comes out, you know, like it's just like content as opposed to like being art that really connects with the music. So but that's why I'm all for like, you know, using other creatives or like designers who have their own brands to like do this stuff, or even do like direct collaborations with those people for albums. Yeah.
Yeah, it just gives like another, I think that, and I'm just like thinking about it, I have no proof. I honestly haven't done much work within the music industry at all, but it's like just having more people give their perspective on like a huge body of work that you do, like an album, it just like fleshes out the concept even more. And it makes for a much more complete and whole like just whole like creative, there's a word I'm looking for, but just like a release of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think like when there's a huge team behind people, it can go both ways, right? So like it can end up being like this really well-rounded, really like full sort of like fleshing out of an idea or like a concept with an album. But like the flip side of that is it can also be too many cooks in the kitchen. And I found that a lot of times, especially with my work, like I you know, if I'm working with an artist per se, I like working directly with like the artist and their manager. And like that feels better to me than having to connect with like the label or like, and I'm not opposed to doing it. I'm not saying like I'm difficult to work with, but I'm saying I think it's easier for me to sort of like find that vision when it's like, you know, a lot of creative minds in the room, because I will say like the business side is obviously what's important to those people, you know, the people at the labels. But I think that should, like when it comes to merch, a lot of the times it, you know, should come secondary to how good the merch is.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think a lot of that comes from Brockhampton. Like Brockhampton, and I know people have been putting out merch forever, and this is such like a young guy on the scene sort of thing to say, but like Brockhampton did like put out the best merch for a long time, and they put out a shitload of merch.
Yeah, they really did. I'm trying to remember what album it started with. Like I've been a fan ever since the first Saturation, but I don't think they probably released some merch for it. But
no, they released a lot of merch with everything.
With even the Saturation albums.
Yeah,
I can't remember
so.
Those ones. I
had a lot of merch actually from the Saturation stuff that I actually sold for quite a bit of money because that was hard merch to come by.
Yeah. That's interesting. I remember with Iridescent, that's their fourth album, right? That's what it's called. Or fifth, technically. I'm trying to do math. Yeah, fifth. Because with American Trash. With American Trash.
Oh, yeah. If you count that. And if you count Unreleased Puppy.
Oh.
Which was scrapped.
Yeah, it was scrapped. There was some... do you know the song Lamb by Brockhampton? It was like
I don't know if I want to show it on
YouTube.
camera, but I have a tattoo of the word lamb that has multi meanings, but one of them is for that song, which is personally my favorite Brockhampton song.
It's amazing.
It's like,
was that gonna be on Puppy?
No, it was actually for Saturation 3, I believe, and it was like the last track that just like I just think it didn't make the cut. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm not in Brockhampton, so I can't speak on it, but I will say that, I mean, there's a full music video for it. I listened to it on my phone just by like ripping it on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's very good though.
I remember being like 15 or whatever at the time, and I thought it was just so good. I wanted it to be on the platforms so bad. And do you have a favorite, like on
Brockhampton related, do you have a favorite song that is not on any streaming that you had to rip to get onto your phone? Do you know what I mean? I feel like everyone has a couple songs like that.
There were this is funny, but my friends and I were way into Sheck Wes like before like I hate being like before he was big or whatever, but like seriously, like when he was on Snapchat and would like respond to you.
Oh wow!
If you added him on Snapchat.
Jeez.
And it was like with Mo Bamba, but there was I think LeBron James was one of them that me and my friends would grab. There's a few more. I can't remember the names, but that was definitely like the artist I remember doing that most with, because he only had like a few things out. And
I see what you're saying, like a really early artist who wasn't even putting stuff up like that.
Yeah, there's as far as like Frank Ocean, for instance, with Endless. Like I think that's like a classic.
I've got
like
the full
I have
Endless
to load that onto the phone.
You know it. Yeah.
Because that album's way good too.
And like Nostalgia Ultra, you know what I mean? Like all those old cut Frank Ocean songs are really good. I didn't even consider that because those are like full albums.
Yeah.
I have there's two that come to mind immediately, but there's a Justin Bieber song I think it's called Hit the Ground. And it was like on the Japanese release of Purpose.
Really?
Oh my gosh. If you're listening to this right now, after it's over, go listen to that. It's very good.
Hit the Ground.
It's like Where Are You Now, but like just another one. Okay. like another techno banger. But then the other one is like not so much a song, but I listen to the 1975's Tiny Desk all the time.
Yeah. Tiny Desk, there's like some of those shows are really great. Like some people really kill it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Have they been doing any since
this is a big gripe that I have with Tiny Desk, it's not a gripe because I get it, but like, and with late night talk shows, they're just so much less interesting, like with the way they've been doing it. And obviously I totally understand why they have to do that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, watching an interview with so-and-so when they're at their house for some reason, and I don't know why, but I feel like most people feel this way, it's just like less interesting. And it's the same with these tiny desks where it's like, I want to see Dua Lipa's tiny desk, but like when I'm watching like a rehearsed performance in a studio with like the theatrics, it's just like another performance. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Justin Bieber had a very good one recently.
I haven't watched the Justin Bieber one. There were a few that like I was way into when I was younger. Did No Name have a random? But did No Name have a tiny desk? Because I feel like there was some smaller Chicago rapper at the time. This is like years ago. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's obscure. Yeah, it's obscure. But it's just like one that I liked. If that exists, it might not exist. I might be confusing it with something else.
Yeah,
but
I'm a big fan of. This is like when I'm like, and I feel like all people do shit like this, but like, I love to watch like old interviews of just like anybody or like performances like that. That shit will make me feel inspired to go do other stuff. So for instance, last night I wasn't feeling like creatively inspired and I had some work to do. So I watched Kanye West and Pusha T on Funk Flex, and immediately I was like, oh, this is amazing. Then I watched Kanye on SNL and I cried, and I was like, okay, now I want to go do work because this is amazing.
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah. There's so like, that's what I love about interviews and any like performance. It's like, this is this person now and it's archived forever.
Yeah.
Like,
and they change, especially someone like Kanye, right? Like the eras of Kanye are so fascinating to go through. You know what I mean?
They really are. They really are.
Wait, what's your rank? Okay, just give me top 3 Kanye albums.
Top 3 Kanye albums: Yeezus, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and then Graduation for me.
That is so crazy. None of your top 3 are even in my top 3.
What's yours?
Mine are Pablo, Ye, and then College Dropout.
College Dropout's really good. Yeah. The Ye was good too. Honestly, I think it's underrated a little bit.
I'm not saying this because I think it's bad, but truly, I'm not a Yeezus fan.
Really, it took me a while. I didn't like it, and then all of a sudden it just clicked for some reason. But I was getting way into like more industrial music at the time, which it's totally like is that sound, and I don't know, it really like clicked for some reason. And I was working so much, and it's just like the most intense album, and I would just listen to it like a ton while printing because it just has like so much energy.
It does have a lot of.
I felt like it would carry me through. It would like carry me through all my work.
It's very much a full album. Like you can replay and it's a full album. Like when I listen to Yeezus, I'm not like there's like a lot of singles on here. You know what I mean? Well, I guess there are bangers, but it's very very much a full album.
Yeah.
I will say the reason I like Ye so much though is because I was in New York like when all that stuff when that era of Kanye was happening, and like I got to go to the Ye listening party, which was really cool.
Wait,
in
that
Brooklyn.
Was that in Wyoming?
So they had the first Ye one in Wyoming, and then they did one in like L.A. They did one in Brooklyn, and I believe they did one somewhere else. But I got to go to the Brooklyn one, and it was like unbelievable. And then I had like some very like religious level experiences. Walking around New York, very much on drugs. Yeah. Listening to Ye. That album. I actually will say one time, actually the night I think the album first came out, because the listening party in Wyoming was the night the album came out. Yeah. But the night the album came out, I was like very far away from where I was staying. And I was on a concoction. Concoction? Is that a word?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah,
for some reason, it doesn't sound right. I was on a group of things, and I was trying to get home, and I like listened to the album on repeat, and then I just like couldn't figure out how to get home, and my phone died, and I had to get back to Brooklyn, and I was like in Manhattan, and I had to walk across the bridge like at night, and it was raining. It was very like, a memory you don't forget. You know what I mean?
For sure. And was it all because of listening to Ye? It drained your battery.
It drained my battery. It was such a banger that my phone was like, dude, you can't take any more of this. You're going to be unstoppable.
I did really, really like that album when it came out. But weirdly enough, I was like young enough. I think I was 15 or 16 when that came out. I can't remember. But I hadn't like listened to much Kanye.
Really?
So at the time, that was like one of the first Kanye things that I listened to.
Yeah, I was telling my girlfriend last night because we were watching the Ultralight Beams performance on SNL, which is very good, and I was talking to her about the night that Pablo came out, and like all of us waiting up all night, refreshing, trying to like getting a free trial to Tidal, trying to like play this album early, you know what I mean? Because Kanye was on SNL and he ended his performance by being like Pablo out now, go go go, and like it just wasn't out. But when that album came out, it was like all anybody was listening to.
That's what everybody says who's like
Was old enough at the time.
yeah, was old enough and was paying attention to it. I'm not saying that like I wasn't old enough. It just wasn't when I was listening. Like I was probably like 14 or 13
What
when
does
that came
what does
out.
14-year-old Hollis listen to?
14-year-old me, I was listening to there's one like that I still listen to. Interesting okay, I'm not able to speak right now. The interestingly enough, the one of the artists that I listened to was this like crazy underground person named Ruben Slick, who has like if anybody is listening to this and has listened to Ruben Slick, they're gonna be like, no way.
I've never heard of him.
No, he's super obscure, but he has this like really wild album called King Asher Slick the Magnificent.
Okay.
And this is what I was listening to like on repeat at 14. But I also found Tyler around that age. So I was listening to him like a ton of Tyler too at the time. And it was like a lot of Wolf, a lot of Goblin, and then Cherry Bomb had just came out around that time, and some Cherry Bomb too.
Yeah, I can't even, I would love to lie and pretend like I was on the Tyler wave before it was like really cool, but I wasn't. I think that I've always like admired Tyler as like an artist in general.
Yeah.
But that early phase Tyler is like not the music that I'm listening to.
Yeah, I think I can like respect it now, but I don't listen to like any of Goblin or any of Bastard anymore. Yeah. I do listen to Cherry Bomb still on occasion, and Wolf, it's been a while. But his new stuff is just it's crazy to see that development, and then now it's like where all of his sounds culminated in Igor. I feel like that's when he first finally like figured out what he was trying to get at. So I thought that was really well done. That's
something that I think is interesting with like all creatives, and sort of I think I dream for this about myself, but like Tyler was like sort of, for all of us watching, got to be like the highest of like, okay, what happens when this guy who's really good at what he does like finally gets like and I just heard the guy that runs Fear of God say this on Kerwin's podcast, but he was like, what happens when somebody finally gets the finances to like fulfill, the actual vision of what they're doing? Mm-hmm. And it's like, for myself, I imagine when that day comes, like I'll be able to do just like some really, fascinating stuff. And when you look at what Tyler did, it's just like, man, he killed it. As soon as he had the money to like really put that into what he was doing, it was unbelievable.
For real. And at the same time, like around that time, golf like got way better.
Oh yeah. And the signing with Converse, all that.
Yeah. It came with the signing with Converse, the start of Golf LaFleur, but it just got ridiculously good. And like everything that Tyler was doing just like worked up to this point. And I'm really excited to see what he's doing next. We haven't heard much from him.
He's incredible. And obviously that whole camp is like, for anybody that's our age and is like doing what you and I do, like you have to give your flowers to those people, right? Like they paved the road for you, which is funny to say because they're not that old, right? But it's like Tyler really did, and how corny is that? Because who fucking doesn't say shit like that? But like Tyler paved the way for all of us to be able to do a lot of this stuff.
No kidding. Do you feel like so you mentioned like when you reach that, do you have any ideas of like what's the big vision? Or is there a big vision? Do you think about this? Yeah,
I mean, like, you definitely have to have a vision. You have to have dreams, but it always changes, right? So, like, I couldn't have even imagined, like, a year ago that, the situation I'm in now would be the situation that I'm in. Because along this road, like, you don't really see what's around the corner. Oftentimes, you just have to take it when it comes. But, like, big vision-wise for me, I mean, there are definite ideas for what I want to do. There are people that I like look up to and want to see, my brand sort of like have that trajectory. But like me as a personal artist, I have very different goals for like what I see myself as versus the brand. Like, I love my work with Muse. I love doing that stuff. And I intend to do it, for as long as people will care. But I also love writing. Like that's my first love in art. Like that's what sort of got me into all of this was writing. And I intend to do that until I'm a very old man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You've been as long as I've known you or like known of you for, I mean, it's been about 3 years now, probably.
Oh, I think it's been longer than that. I feel like we met like 3 years ago.
That might've been the case. Yeah. We went out to eat for lunch and Camden was there. Shout out Camden. That was fun. But as long as I've known about you, you've been making or like writing a lot of poems and writing a bunch and sharing it. And I remember I got your your poetry book, the first one that you did, around that time that we met, because I think you gave it to me as like an extra in an order, and it was really good. Like I genuinely like 16-year-old me thought it was way sick.
That's awesome.
It's been a while since I've read it. I should have opened it up before this podcast would be fresh on my head,
Sure.
but just know I really liked it.
Oh man, that means the world. I appreciate that. I think like I have always had like I will let people into my brain in like a really intimate way, which sometimes is like not good. But with writing, it's like the only time where it feels like really justified to like be like completely honest with like who I am and how I feel about things, and it's just like feels very healthy for me to do. So I love doing it, and to have it like when I first started writing, I'm not writing for anyone to read it, obviously. And then I just wrote enough that I was like, there's an entire book here, let me put it out. But then, being able to hear how people take that art and like apply it to themselves is, the most rewarding shit ever, And it's the same, honestly, like I haven't really realized this until recently with like the success of Muse stuff. Clothing's the exact same way, especially like a lot of streetwear is like really straightforward what it's doing. But somehow a lot of the stuff that I've done lately is like very like moldable to how the person is seeing it. I was in Von Maur the other day where they carry a bunch of our stuff, and I was speaking with one of the women who runs the section there where our stuff is, and she was like telling me what the different shirts meant to her, and it was like I was like blown away, because I never really even I considered what it means, but I considered what it meant to me. I never really considered like how that would affect someone, and then how it would make them feel wearing it, or even just not even buying it or wearing it, but just seeing it in the store.
Seeing it in the store, like working around it every day.
Yeah.
And like think about it. She was probably like thinking about like every day being surrounded by this stuff, and just it was a slow digestion of your work. Like she spent a lot of time with that. Isn't that that's kind of crazy?
Oh man, it's wild.
Yeah.
I actually like genuinely, like after that happened, I like sat with it for a while. I was like, it's very cool. And I think like there's like a lot of different reasons that people do, what we do nowadays, or like they do creative endeavors nowadays. And a lot of that is for like, for whatever reason. And I don't think anybody should be doing art for like validation from others, but I would be absolutely lying if I said that the validation doesn't feel fantastic.
It does. It does feel fantastic. It is. I think that there's honestly a lot of easier ways to find validation.
Oh,
if anybody's interested in that,
this is probably the hardest way, because before you'll get the validation, you'll get whatever the exact opposite of that is over and over again.
Yeah, you get it a lot, especially when you're first starting. Like there is this moment where it's like, I'm an artist, and you start making work, and everybody who doesn't characterize you as that is like, it's like a weird identity shift, and you get shit for that.
I played college football, so like my whole life was an athlete. That was my shtick. That was like what I cared about. And then like I started posting, poems or whatever it was, and it was like, and like I've always been, flamboyant with how I dress and like what I say and what I do and who I am. But like, on the social media side of it, on Instagram, it's like this guy's a football guy. But to make that shift actually was not very easy. Yeah. But I will say something that I was thinking about this earlier, and I wanted to bring it up. When you're in that phase where like your art doesn't feel validated, it does feel really easy to like look at the other people around you and like get mad at them for doing what you're doing. But something that I've learned, okay, so this is why I bring this up. When I first started Muse, I had like probably 2 years of doing it. And then I was hanging out with Ben Eastman, who is the brother of one of your good friends.
I was hanging out with him last night, actually.
Yeah. And he was actually buying some stuff from your brand's first drop. And I remember looking at it and like being mad. And like, but like this is, I say this to say, I looked at it and I was mad, and I was like, damn, my friends are at this table buying this stuff, like save your money for my stuff. And now, years later, removed from that, it's the most toxic trait in local art communities that could possibly exist. Now I look at all the people that are in our scene, and like, all those guys, I consider them friends now. And I literally, every time they win, I love it, because I know how hard it is to win. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, when someone gets a great placement, something ends up in a Trippie Red video, right? Like Miller McCoy's stuff did recently. Like, I love that, dude. Shout out to those guys when they do great things, because there really is like, it seems like this stuff's competitive because people act like it is. And, you know, it's like sort of becomes a dick measuring competition on like who's cooler, who's got the best celebrity in their stuff, who's got the biggest, you know, whatever release, or who's releasing the most. But really at the end of the day, there's room for all of us. Like my friends can buy Oldpeoplebrand and they can buy Muse brand and they can fucking wear all of it because all of it's cool. Yeah. And like then you realize, like, would I rather have my Muse sweatshirt paired with like some dumbass Supreme tee, or would I rather have it paired with like an Oldpeoplebrand tee from like a local kid that's actually cool? You know what I mean?
True.
And it's like that mindset, I think, like, is one of the things that has actually furthered my career as much as anything.
Yeah.
Was like not feeling like I have to compete with anyone and actually like being able to celebrate other people's victories.
Yeah, it's super difficult. It's really hard, especially when you're not winning. I will say that much.
Sure.
It like, because I think everybody was in this trap, and I was when I first started. Like same time that you're talking about, like when I first started my brand. Similar feelings with other local brands.
Yeah.
They pop up all the time. And I mean, after like a year or two of like owning the company, I mean, 6 months and it was a lot better. I wasn't as judgmental or like as envious of things, but like 2 years in, dude, I just don't even, like now I'm 3.5 years in, I could care less. I don't care at all.
Well, yeah. And like you can't be protective over stuff like that.
You can't be protective over stuff like that. And these people, like you could probably be really good friends with them.
Oh yeah. And like who else is going to understand what you're going through more than those people? You know what I mean? Like there are like local Iowa City brands, you know, that stuff like that would happen when we were in college. And now it's like people like Zach Frisbee, right? And
he's been making cool stuff,
dude.
Zach, if you're
shout out Zach.
To this, I want you on the podcast, man.
But like that, like for instance, when Zach was doing his stuff, it was like similar time you were doing your stuff and I was doing my stuff. And I remember looking at it and being like, there can only be one. And it's like, that's not the way you should look at it. Now I look at Zach and I'm like, dude, what you're doing is fucking tight. Also, it's all of us are doing different stuff. No matter how similar we want to act like it is, it's all different.
Way different. Yeah.
You know, as much as like Oldpeoplebrand and Muse Clothing have similar like business layouts, we're doing different stuff and both can be separately ill. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's the same with Zach, but especially Zach's stuff, very different and very cool. Same with the guy you just had on your podcast, that mad dude. Yeah. The shit he's doing, very cool. And there's room for all of us to be cool. And like, if you're a young person that's listening to this and you want to start a brand and like you see someone else winning and it doesn't feel like whatever, there's enough space for you too. And if that person that runs that brand is acting like there's not enough space for you too, it's just because they're insecure.
Yeah, and that's the honest truth. The insecurity. Yeah.
And it's valid to have insecurity in a world that's really hard to make money, right?
Yeah, that's another thing. Do not start a streetwear brand if you want to make money.
Totally. I agree.
Don't do that. Start a streetwear brand because you love clothes or something.
And if you're okay burning your money for a long time.
Invest it. Yeah. It's a pain, but it's a ton of fun. And yeah, there's space for everybody.
Totally.
There's space for everybody.
And like everyone should, you know, as the world becomes less and less, there's less and less room for like, you know, regular jobs. And this is going to sound so dumb, but I think a lot about how eventually, right, like with the way things are, there'll be less and less work for all people, right? Yeah. And then art is sort of the only outlet that people have for, you know, work or like to find meaning in. And it's like everybody's art can be important on that day. You know what I mean?
Will we all be artists? I've heard like a similar like progression idea of like we eventually technology becomes so advanced that we eventually remove the need for people to work. It's all automated. Yeah. And then everybody's just doing things like making art or other things that provide real value to their lives. That would be such an interesting world to live in. Yeah. Well, I mean, like once you don't have work, right? I think that people like, especially our generation of kids, like undervalues how much work, you know, provides to your life, like provides value to your life. Oh, it really does. It's not just like a means to make money. Like, especially having found this stuff that I care about, you know, I never thought that I could find fulfilling work, but I will say like, you know, if I could pick what I do with my day, I'm going to feel the best if I'm, you know, doing my work. For real. You know, like that's going to make me feel the best. But that said, at the end of the day, when there's no jobs left, really it is all we have left to do is create, because people aren't just going to sit around and fucking play golf all day. You know what I mean? They might do a little bit of that, but then they got to be doing something really fulfilling. Also, that being said, fuck the sport of golf.
I hate that sport, dude. If you like golf,
I've never golfed.
I hate that sport. And people always are like, yo, let's go golf. Fuck that, dude. I don't want to golf. I don't want to sit around all day and feel sweaty when I can't even do athletic activity. If I try to run to my ball, someone yells at me. The only way to play golf for fun is to play it for speed, not for strokes.
For speed.
For speed.
Keep it quick. Run to your
And fast
ball.
golf carts, run to the ball. Also, fresh rule, if you want to try this, the golf cart's never allowed to stop moving. You're going to get kicked out of wherever you're at, but trust me, it is the only way to make golf fun, especially if you're bad at it like me.
I've never gone golf. I have a bunch of friends who love golfing, and they're definitely listening to this right now. And they were like, they want me to go with them. I'm going to try it out once. I'll get back to you, Anthony. But we're definitely going to play with the never let the golf cart stop moving.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice, a little addition.
When I was in high school, I was like, I went to a private high school and I was like on scholarship, and there was a lot of rich kids, right? And it was like a really, I don't want to, there's like a lot to get into with that sense, but what I say this to say, they all loved fucking golf. And like one time ever, I got invited with like a group to go golfing, and like I didn't have a ton of, that friends from that school, but one time they invited me to go golfing at like a nice ass golf course, and I made up the speed rules for golf, and like all of their parents furious at me because they're at this golf club every day.
Yeah.
And now they're like known, people know that they're just going to fucking tear up the golf course. And it was all my idea. I actually remember vividly, like a lot of those parents of those kids, and this is like a lot, but they didn't let their kids hang out with me for a while because I, quote unquote, pushed the envelope too much.
Push the envelope. It's like, what the hell does that mean?
That's what an adult said to a 16-year-old kid for why the kids weren't allowed to hang out with him.
Damn, that's ridiculous.
I know. It's very weird.
Hey, was that heavy? Did you know this at the time?
Oh, yeah, I knew it was heavy. I remember, like, a parent came out to, like, it happened a bunch, shit like that has happened a lot of times in my life. I've got a very polarizing personality. Yeah. But, like, I remember a parent came out to my car one time when I was, like, a sophomore in high school, and I dropped his son off at his house after football practice, of all things. Like, I literally drove him home from football practice. And the dad came out to my car, and he said, we're done with you now. We don't want to see you for a while. Please stop talking to our son. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm a baby.
That's ridiculous.
I'm not even doing anything. Like, I was like a fucking...
I gave your son a ride home.
From football practice. I guess later find out they were late for a tee off. Because I took too long to drive him home from football practice, I guess. But and that's why, fuck the sport of golf.
Okay. I'm starting to... We're unveiling. We're unwrapping
We're
golf
doing
here.
a therapy about why I hate golf.
That's beautiful. Dude, like, what were you thinking about that at the time?
When I was in high school?
Yeah, like,
well,
I don't even know how I would comprehend that.
I think a lot of people will know what high school I went to. Like, if you're a local kid, I don't want to, like, put the high school on blast. But, like, I had a terrible high school experience. Just because I, like, the person that you see me as now is, like, pretty much the guy I've been, right? Yeah. Like, I don't really care that much for the standard of how things have been, and I don't really care that much for wasting my time with shit that's like pointless. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I say that to say, in high school I went to a private Christian high school, and like if I disagree with something that's being said, and I don't want to get that too far into religion, but like if I like have a core theological disagreement with something that's said, I'm gonna voice it, right? But there was shit that happened that was so crazy, like teachers having problems with like teachers totally misinterpreting stuff in the Bible to be like very anti, homophobic. Mm-hmm. And, myself being somebody that is like, I don't really like assign myself to whatever group of sexuality. Mm-hmm. It's like, and I've always felt that way, but when you're sort of in that environment, like most people would sort of like sit back and feel, ashamed. Mm-hmm. But like for me, I was vocal and I was like, I made a joke out of it, whatever. And then the teacher in front of the whole school, I was just like, what, like, why are you afraid of that? Why are you afraid of, the teacher essentially said something along the lines of like, I would never let my son hang out with a gay person. And I was like, are you afraid of like your son, like being gay because he hangs out with a gay person, and also like what's wrong if your son's gay, the whole thing, right? And the teacher in front of like my entire grade of boys was like, Antony, we all know that you're bringing this up because you're gay, you know, like in front of everyone.
That's crazy.
And that's me as like a kid in high school. So like experiences like that, or like the principal, the principal wrote an email to all the teachers about how I was going to hell. And one of the teachers left it up on an overhead board for my entire class to read. And then like pictures were getting sent around, and then the principal called in my parents and all this shit. So that being said, bad high school experience, but I do feel like I am uniquely prepared for certain instances because of it.
Yeah, that's like one way to get thrown into hell and back, man.
Totally. But it really like calluses you to, with what I've done now in my life, right? Like people are going to say shit about me all the time. And like people are going to say mean shit to my face. They're going to say it behind my back. I'm going to have friends that say mean shit about me and aren't my friends anymore. And it's like, I've become pretty good at like discerning, who the real ones are. Yeah.
Just trying to find genuine people. And I'm sure like that socialization experience throughout high school, I mean, that's what high school really is. Like it's like 10% education, 90% socialization.
Yeah. And that's what's hard is like, and that's why when I got to college, I had like another identity crisis sort of, and then I started Muse, and then I became a drug addict. Yeah. And it's like, that was sort of my trajectory, right? And looking back 10 steps, you could go back 4 years, and like that would have been so obvious, right? If you saw what I was going through, you'd be like, oh, this is likely going to be his trajectory. Mm-hmm. And like, I just will like, and I think it's different now that I'm an adult, and I have like real people around me and people that I know and love, right?
Yeah.
But like when you're in high school and you're figuring that out, and which I figure like a lot of people that are listening to this will be a little younger. I always forget.
Probably in high school.
I always forget that you're younger than me, but it's like, if you're in high school and you're like listening to this, or even if you're like early college days, like the best advice I could ever give would to be the version of yourself that you want to be, as hard as you possibly can, right? Like, and be outward about that. And it likely will happen that you'll lose friends, but it will also happen that you'll find people that will actually build lasting relationships with you.
Because you're being your ideal self.
And when you change, right? Because eventually you're going to become that person. And when you become that person, it's not going to be like you're surrounded by a bunch of people that are not like you,
Yeah. I think that could be like a major issue. And I see it happen to people who are in circles who are, this is not even I'm not talking in any creative circles, just like straight up. Like normal,
I'm saying this about just regular
normal
kids.
people. Yeah. Like, they want more, and their friends constantly bring them down for wanting more. And I can't think of like a concrete example, but I'm sure it's a story that many people have heard. Man,
I can't even, you saying that right now just even brings back like, I can't tell you how many friends I've lost because like, I'm like, and this it sounds dumb to say, I'm really ambitious. Like if I know that there's a whole cake out there and I can eat the whole fucking cake, I'm going to try and eat the whole fucking cake.
I think it's self-evident.
Well, thank you. But it's like, and it's also my fault. I'm not blameless in that, right? Like if you're ambitious like that, it is 1,000,000% that you are going to meet people that are not as ambitious as you. And with someone like me, like I wanted all my friends to be as ambitious, and it's just not the case. And that's okay, right? Like it's okay if you want to go be a teacher. I love that for you, right? Yeah. And like and whatever makes you happy at the end of the day, it would not make me happy. And it took me a long time to figure out that like everyone is sort of going to go have their own thing,
Yeah. And the own thing really will probably be a lot different than being like you are. or like certainly. Yeah. Like, without question. Everybody's way different. Now, I sort of feel the same thing like with the ambition. I've sort of like chilled out a little bit just in general. I don't know if it was COVID that did it to me or like whatever it was with the ambition. I'm just like I'm like rolling steady right now. It's not,
which is healthy.
I feel like I'm actually probably the healthiest I've ever been.
That's awesome.
Which is, it's really good. It feels great. But throughout high school, it was just this sort of hyper ambition, just move, try to do as much as I can. And I'd talk to people and be like, what are you planning for like next year? Like, is there a project that you're thinking about doing?
So
and
unfair to ask people that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I did the same shit.
Obviously nobody's thinking about
Totally.
that. And it was just
it's
like,
only you.
Yeah. It's only you. And you're the only person putting that much pressure on yourself. So
Totally.
I totally felt that way. And it made it hard to relate to people, honestly. Because I was just unbelievably, it was toxic levels of ambition that I was experiencing.
But it even makes it hard still to this day to relate to certain people, like, you know, certain of my family or my girlfriend or whoever it is. Like, it makes it hard to relate to people when it's like, you know, the way you see the world is the way that 99.9% of people are not going to see the world. And I agree with what you're saying with like the unhealthy levels of ambition, and like,
I think everybody has their own healthy state.
Yeah,
like some people's healthy level will be higher than mine.
Because I was going to say my healthy level is like my legs are moving like Sonic the Hedgehog in complete circles as fast as they go.
For sure.
You know, and that's where I feel the best. And it you know, maybe physically it's not as healthy, but like emotionally I feel really good when I'm like that.
Yeah. It does do a lot for, and this is like what I notice whenever I'm doing like a collection, and it's just you're in that sprint mode. Ooh. And it
feels so good
for like 3 weeks. You feel like the best you felt.
But the day the
like
collection drops, you feel horrible.
Yeah. Then the day it drops until for like a month afterwards,
horrible.
You're so drained. Dude.
Yeah, dude. But not even that. Like I don't know if you feel this way, but like no matter how well a collection sells, I'm always like, why doesn't it say $1 billion? And I don't even care about the money. It's not even like that. I just, you know, I know that there could be more. But that being said, it's like, it's also really unhealthy sometimes. Like for me, I have to learn lessons like the hardest way possible. Right. And like, you know this about me, but like with like the last, you know, collection 5 that I did, you know, a couple of years ago, I was screen printing everything myself. And the collection sold much better than I expected it to. And I ended up like absolutely just like blowing up 3 discs in my back. And I had to have minor surgery on my spine, and like I couldn't walk. You know, I could walk, but I couldn't like pain-free walk for, you know, a year. And like I learned from that. I still can't even do shit, right? And like I go to the doctor and they're like, your back will, like, a doctor one time told me like, you'll never run at full speed again. And it's like, you learn quickly, especially in like this line of work, or like in anything where you're like putting your body on the line. You learn that like you can, you know, it doesn't matter how young you are, you can fuck your shit up permanently. Yeah. And you have to be careful of that. And that teaches you the healthy balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Was that from screen printing?
Strictly from screen printing. Yeah. So actually I would be in the studio, like all night, because, a friend of mine owned it during the day and he would let me print there at night. Shout out Skylar. And I would work in it all night. And when the day sort of came is when he would come in. So I would like literally when I would work there from like sundown till sunup. Mm-hmm. And I would leave. And then I remember the last day I printed stuff, I left the shop and I got home and I was like, my back hurts. And then I woke up in the morning and I was like, oh fuck, like I can barely walk. And I had to leave for a tour in 2 weeks. So then I did like a 2.5-3 month tour of like the entire country with my back like that. And then I believe we were like halfway through the tour, we were in Tucson, Arizona. And I had to go get like an emergency anti-inflammatory shot in my spine. And this is like this shit sucks that a doctor said this to me, but it's funny, so I'll say it. So it ended up being because I had recently learned how to screen print, right? Like years before that. And so it's like, I've been doing this my whole life. I didn't know how to do it, you know, the best way possible. I'd been planning on the same leg over and over again. And I'd been pushing like the exact same way. And I have like these big tree trunk legs. Mm. So when the hamstring gets tight, the hip gets tight and it throws out the lower back. Mm-hmm. And so I blew up 2 of my lowest discs in my back and then 1 in my mid back because of that. Anyways, I'm in Arizona. I go to the emergency room to get a shot in my back because I'm like, I can't move. The doctor's like, did you get kind of fat recently? Literally, that's what he said. And I was like, I mean, like, yeah. And he was like, oh, that's why this hurts. I was like, no, it's not. But kind of, you know, when you carry weight that your body's not used to carrying. Yeah. Anyways, a doctor told me that one time that like, it was just because I like gained weight, which hurt my feelings. But
Like, no, it might have been because I just worked my ass off for
really
a
hard.
month, screen printing, third shift.
and I've been
doing it.
sitting on a bus, you know, nonstop on these
True.
big ass bus rides forever.
True. How is the tour? We can talk about the tour at length, but the tour, like when you're actually traveling to each location, what's that like?
I love it. And I also will say, like, the two for real tours that I've been on, like, fully, were with Skizzy Mars. We can talk about this later, but like I owe 95% of my career to Skizzy Mars. I love that guy. He's a genius, you know, and he's an expert at finding talent before anyone else. But so I went on tour with him, and he and I are actually like really good friends. So we'll live together on tour. But like I say that to say the whole crew that we run with, for the most part, awesome. Like the main guys in the band and like, you know, that run behind the scenes shit, awesome guys. So like sometimes you're in a tour bus with certain artists and it's like dead quiet because not everyone's like as good of friends.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we all have running relationships to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So like bus rides are great. And like, I will say, in terms of my writing, I write my best stuff on tour. Like I got back from this last tour I was on right before COVID, and like I had literally like an entire book's worth of shit to sort through in my notes app. That was like the best stuff I've ever written. Because you're getting so much experiences constantly, you have to unload them.
Yeah.
And like you're meeting so many people and you're like carrying the weight of like the things they tell you, and you have to like put that somewhere. You know what I mean?
There's just so much material to work through. I mean, and if that's your way of like digesting what's going on in your life, like you got to do it.
Well,
Did you feel like that was a big component? You were like, I'm sorting this out by writing about it. I'm making great art, but I'm like working through these experiences that I'm having.
Yeah. Yes, but actually, so I started writing. I never written anything besides like fucking the regular stuff that all of us wrote in high school, right, for a class. And I like doing that. I love attention. So like, if I write something and someone likes it, I love attention. I can't even lie. But like, I had a really bad breakup, and I had just started experimenting with drugs, and I was feeling really low. And I remember just like writing stuff on my computer for myself, like almost journal style, to like get stuff out. And then I really liked it. And then I would start posting stuff, and, you know, other people were reacting to it, and I kept writing. And then I went to the University of Iowa, and I was actually in the creative writing program there.
Which is a great one.
Which is the best creative writing program in the country, I believe.
Yes.
And I had some really great teachers. Shout out Yvonne, still to this day, one of my good friends. And she was an incredible teacher, showed me some incredible art to show me that like in writing, it doesn't have to be as pretentious as everyone thinks it has to be. You don't have to be, you know, Emily Dickinson to... you know, you don't have to be writing puzzles, you know, for people to solve. You can write exactly what you feel and exactly what you mean, and people will react to it. Yeah. But I say that because I was writing from the beginning to unload stuff. And like, that's just sort of like where that came from. And it sort of became the healthiest way to do it. And it's always been that way. And on tour, like, when you're driving through the mountains at like 4 a.m. and like the sun's coming up, it's like beautiful. It's like you are overwhelmed with like a feeling that if you can get the way that you're feeling onto a sheet of paper, it's going to be moving to people. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I will say, I really have no reason to be on these tours. Like I'll creative direct for people. I'll design the merch. Sometimes I'll fucking sell the merch if that's, you know what, or I'll do the photography, videography, whatever it is. I'll do that. And I love doing it and I have fun, but I'm there. You know, I'm gaining these experiences to make art off of.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to like get higher up in the photography world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Your first tour, you were there technically as a photographer, right?
I was there as a photographer, videographer, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second one was you were the merch director, almost like you were at the booth.
Yeah, and I was like running reorders, all that stuff. And I always do a couple, like, there's always work on tour, right? So like running meet and greets, whatever it is, or things like that is just like, I can talk to people, so I can do any sort of like job like that. But again, I'm really there to soak up the experiences, and because I love the people I'm with. All the people on that tour, like, you know, the drummer Dave Briggs, or the guitar player GC, or like this tour manager Dom. You know, like these people are people that I love and like genuinely like outside of touring would hang out with, and I think that's pretty rare. And I think again that's a testament to who Skizzy is as a person. Like Skizzy will really try his best to only surround himself with like real ass people.
Yeah, just some great people.
Yeah.
That's something that is like, I feel like that's a hard skill to develop. Like
It's
picking
so
out
impressive.
who to put on your team.
Yeah.
That's very difficult.
Because you're accountable for everything they do. And I also will say, like, with Skizzy giving me my like initial platform too, it's like, you know, I have the utmost like appreciation for that, because like he knows who I am as a person and sees that and co-signs it. And I love that, you know, and all the artists that have done it since are, it's the exact same, right? When you co-sign an artist, you co-sign like, you know, their art, you co-sign them as a person too. And it's like, that's hard to do, especially now. Cause you know, you don't know people that well, but if you can build those relationships where like people know who you are, and like, it's not any bullshit. Like these people I'm working with, you know, I've done a lot of work lately with this artist, Quinn 92. I fucking love that guy. Like I literally love that guy. This artist, Yoshi Flower, is like, would be a groomsman at my wedding. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the way, for me at least, that makes this job valuable outside of like my own art. When I'm doing supplementary art for projects, I love having a relationship with the people. That's like huge for me.
Yeah.
But that brings into what we were talking about earlier, which I think is important to say. If you're a young creative, just know that's not going to happen immediately. And that probably won't happen for years. What will actually happen for a while is you're going to get fucked over by a lot of people.
Yeah, I've been fucked over quite a few times myself.
Totally. Like what's the last one? Don't give us the name, but I
won't give a name, but there was like a very notable, or he wasn't very notable, but sort of notable, 300,000 followers on Instagram.
That's notable.
Followed by some big guys. And like, this might not have been the last one, but this was like one that ticked me off the most probably. And I don't know. Yeah, I won't say the name, just not give power to the situation at all in any way. But yeah, he asked me, he just like played this total, I'm so into what you're doing, and wanted me to send him clothes to like, quote unquote, do like a shoot in.
Of course. The classic.
I sent him the whole, let's see, it would have been school wellness collection.
The classic. He didn't realize that cost you out of pocket like $700.
It cost me a good amount of money, and to ship it, it's like a big box.
They don't even realize.
And then ghosted me afterwards.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Oh man,
and
I
it's
can't
like,
even tell you how many
I sent him a
times.
message, and I was like, dude, young artists are the last people that you should be trying to fuck
But
over.
and that's
Literally
what's hard is
scam
like
anybody else. I have no
Totally.
money. I have no money at all. Like, come on, dude.
And that's the hardest part too, is like sending that message is hard, because like if that guy gets any bigger, which he probably will, whoever it is.
I actually think he's on a downhill spiral.
Sure.
So.
but so like for me, I've had it happen where the person becomes
Bigger.
crazy famous after.
Yeah.
And it's like, you want that person on your side. You don't want to send that message that's like, fuck you. Right.
Yeah.
But like you feel it, and it's hard because you're in no power position to make anything, you know, any sort of decision or move based on it.
Yeah.
But that's what's fucked up about it, is like, oh, you're right. Fuck over somebody else.
Yeah.
Fuck over Nike.
Yeah. Anybody else, I have no money, I have no power. I'm just making what I want to make, and you're screwing me over.
And that's what I think is hard for a lot of these influencers to realize. Like, when you send a message that's like, I want stuff, right? Or if I offer stuff to you, right? Because we're buds, and you take it, we have no contract. You don't owe anything to me, but it is worth mentioning that like, you know, whatever point you're at, you know, for times in my life I've been like this, that I spent all my money to get that made, because it's an investment. I'm investing in myself, you know? And it's like, for you, you know, it doesn't matter to you at all. You know, you could get it and throw it away. Or one of the things I fucking hate, which has happened to me a million times, you bring something to someone and you fucking see it on their like Lackey tour buddy later. That's a bad one. And I'm sure if you're listening to this and you do what we do, you've had that happen as well, where it's like, I brought this super famous artist a shirt. I followed all the friends that were in the room because we all became buddies throughout the course of the night. And then later in the night, you're seeing him give out the clothes to other people in the room, which is like, it sucks. Again, they don't owe you anything. So it's like, it's sort of a catch-22, but it is a bummer. But I will say, even more than like just the sending clothes stuff, because I know you haven't done like a lot of, you know, like record industry type deals, things like that.
Yeah.
Like that, for some reason also, a lot of kids feel like everyone wants to be a rock star, right? And now you can be a rock star by like working with the rock stars, which is what, you know, sort of like a lot of kids are gravitating towards what we do because of that. But like, be careful, because you know, don't count all of your chickens until they hatch.
Definitely. Yeah. I've learned from that. There's been other situations where it's like, it almost worked out. It was so close to, like, oh my God, this is going to be like what
changes it,
what changes things.
Totally.
And then it just like doesn't happen. So
totally.
Just like, all I can say is just put your head down, make as good of work as you possibly
totally.
can.
And like be nice to everyone. Like,
for sure.
Like, you know, I'll name drop this, but like, for instance, I was in a room a couple years back and it was like me. So there were a bunch of artists at this tour that I was at. It was like the LA show. And at the LA show, everyone wants to come out and be at it, right? Because everyone lives in LA. So it's like the LA show for this artist. The room's full of big artists. Two of the guys that are not as big at the time that are in the room are 24 Karat Golden and Trevor Daniel.
Yeah.
And like other people are there, like Young Pinch is there with his whole squad. Mark Basie's there with his whole squad, right? But like Trevor Daniel didn't have, you know, a smash yet. And 24 Karat had Valentino. But you know, that was like more of an underground banger.
Yeah.
Both of these guys had two of the biggest songs in the entire world, literally 12 months later. And it's like, nothing in my life, like I learned this through a number of experiences, but if you're in those rooms ever, value every person in that room the same, right? From the biggest artist in that room to his buddy who's telling you he's making music, but he's got 90 followers on Instagram. You don't know who in that room is gonna blow up. And not only that, like they are like, there's like a culture of like developing this hierarchy of people when you're in a room, right? Like, who do I want to talk to in this room?
Yeah.
I've found that not only the most useful, but also like the people that I want to hang out with the most, right? Or like the people that are going to be the realest are the people in the room that people aren't really talking to, right? Yeah. So like in that instance, I sat down, I talked to Trevor Daniel for a while, and we had a fantastic conversation. And it's like, you can tell this kid's going to be a star. I mean, same with 24 Karat, but it's just like, you could tell these kids are going to be stars. And I say that to say, when you're in the room with everyone, value everyone the same. There's a lot of like clout that goes into this shit, and like a lot of people want that, but like, yeah, value everyone in the room the same. You'll get a lot further.
Yeah. I agree. I haven't been in a ton of rooms, but I think that everybody has something like worth saying too. I mean, I hang out with like a ton of people who aren't doing stuff just in general.
Totally.
And like, yeah. And this is like a separate conversation from like being in rooms with a bunch of people in the creative industry, but like, I don't know. I feel like the industry itself can kind of push you to constantly social climb and whatnot.
It's horrible. Yeah. And like only value people if they're useful to you.
No, that's the thing. It's just like that value thing. And like a lot of the most valuable people in my life are not in this at all. Yeah.
Well, that's what I say. That's what I say when I say those relationships end up being the most valuable. I don't mean they end up like becoming money. I mean like that's going to be the person that you can call when you're having a panic attack.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that because you talk to him. I don't know. I should let you talk more about this. Like, I haven't been in super crazy rooms. Like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of super talented designers and amazing artists at Kent, but none of us are like famous.
Sure.
So we're not hanging. We're like,
yeah. But there's still a hierarchy at a place like Kent, right? I've been in the room with a bunch of designers before. I know that it does, you know, there are people that everyone wants to talk to because they think their work's sick, and there are people that are undervalued, and it's like that person in the room in Kent who's like, you know, maybe doesn't have the biggest, you know, the most art out there, like maybe no one even realizes quite what they're doing, right? Like that could be the person who's doing something that's different enough. Also, that could be the person that ends up being the best man at your wedding. Do you know what I mean? Sure. Like, I think and I agree with what you're saying. I think I couldn't really find the word. The social climbing aspect of a lot of this is like a nightmare. Yeah. And like I will say, having done this long enough, you can tell when someone's social climbing. And everyone in the room can tell too. And like, there's going to be an obvious, like that's going to look enticing to you to social climb. It's going to feel like it's the right thing to be doing at the time. I promise it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah. Do you think that I mean, you've expressed this sentiment many times, but it's just be nice to people. And try to form real relationships.
It's the thing that has gotten, I would say if someone said like, what is the one thing that's gotten you the furthest in your entire career? Obviously it's like, I think that the art I'm making is good, but that aside, like be fucking nice to everyone. And like, and not just in a way where it's like, you know, I'm being nice to you for whatever reason. Be nice to everyone because you actually mean it, you know, and like, you'll be able to get to a place where you really do mean it. And like, you'll actually care, you know, what someone's doing, you know, what college someone's going to, or, you know, what fucking they do for work. Like, be nice to people, and good things will come back to you always.
For sure. I also just think so many people are actually interesting once you figure out how to crack them.
And not like, just so many people, everyone's interesting.
Is. Yeah. Like, honestly, somebody, and whoever's, somebody recently, it was a friend recently said this to me, and it was like, it's not that you are uninteresting, or no, it's not that the other person's uninteresting. It's just that you haven't figured out you haven't figured out the way to talk to them how they need to be talked to open up. Yeah. And I mean, that just good conversation with people is one of the best ways.
It's just one of the best ways, but it's also like one of the most valuable things. Like that conversation is going to be more important than just about anything. And like, you never know who in that room like needs that conversation, you know, not even in a way that's like on some fucking like shit that they teach you in high school, which is like, go sit with the kid that's alone at his lunch table, which, you know, do that. But I'm saying like, genuinely, like, somebody that could seem like they're fine, somebody like myself who will like still be the loudest person in the room, will really value someone coming up to you and having like a real conversation with you. Because it's like, especially in those spaces where it's a lot of famous people, it's rare. For someone to genuinely be asking questions about you. A lot of those conversations are really like, I'm waiting for you to stop talking so I can tell you what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? And I also want to say, because I've been feeling this while I'm saying this, I can't take complete credit for like why I do this in my life. When I was a kid, my dad like valued every person everywhere we went. My dad, and also one of my best friends and my cousin Willie does this as well. It's the most magnetic trait of anything I've ever seen. They can make you feel like the most special person in the room, and they're making everyone else in the room feel like that. And it's like, my dad will go to a restaurant and he'll chop it up with the waiter, and then he'll go to the restaurant, you know, a couple times over the course of a month, and he knows what all the waiters' kids' names are. He cares about that stuff, not because he's getting anything, but because he cares about those people. Yeah. And my dad always taught me that, like, again, everybody's interesting. Everybody has a story that's worth hearing. And also, like, everybody has a story worth telling, which at the end of the day will, like, help you with your art. Because, like, you'll realize both, you know, like in a leveling out sort of way, that your story is not more important than anyone else's. Yeah. But also, like, your story is as important as anyone else's.
For sure. Damn.
That was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. No, that's a good sentiment.
I feel like I'm just giving advice. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry.
I feel like it's just that Iowa atmosphere, like just being nice. I don't know. In Ohio, people aren't as nice as here.
Yeah. And I will say though, like, I think that's such a, there are nice people and mean people everywhere, but like the idea that like people in Iowa are nice and people in New York are mean, whatever, you know, like, some of the nicest people I've ever met are people in New York. Do you know what I mean? Like, you'll find the nice people everywhere. Also, like, this is a sentiment you've heard a million times over, but the energy you give out into the world is the energy you're going to get back. Yeah. Right? So it's like, if you are that person that's like making everyone feel special, you're going to be surrounded by people that make you feel special.
True.
And if you social climb and your whole shit is like, oh, I'm going to gas this person up, I promise you they won't gas you back up. Like, that's just like the nature of this shit is like a lot of people you'll find are famous because they want to be famous. And like, if that's what you're doing and you think this is how it's going to happen, it's not. Like, and like people like fucking someone like Jake Paul, right? Who's gotten famous just off of like, you know, content. Yeah. That's a lane. And like, that's a valid lane. And like, say what you want about whoever, you know, Jake Paul is a great business mind, right?
100%.
And that's great. But like, if you want to do art stuff, it's not the lane to get famous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in that way. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
Because a lot of times you're making supplementary art as well. You're making stuff that supports, you know, your album cover isn't the main reason people are listening to this album. They're listening to the album for the album, and then they fucking like your album cover too.
True. Have you made, actually, you have made some album art, right? What, you want to list some of that off?
Yeah, so I do like complete creative direction for this artist named Collaborate from the Bay. Again, all these people are my friends, but
weirdly enough, okay, I can't remember what song it was, but when I was 14, you mentioned that earlier. What were some of the artists that you listened to? He was one of them.
Really?
There was like one.
Was it Bank
single.
Robber?
I can't remember the name. I mean,
Sure.
it was seriously like 13 or 14. So I don't. Yeah, I can't pull it.
Yeah.
But.
So I've done both of his last albums and then like all the singles in between. But then I was the creative director for the band Camino for a while. I did a bunch of their singles back like when they were a little smaller. But then like I'm trying to think. I feel like I've done way more. I just you can't remember it. Lately, I will say like as of late, my attention's been on Muse stuff. And like I've got a buddy in the room named Caleb who actually Caleb, come here.
Caleb, come here.
Caleb, come here. Come here. I want Caleb to say this. Come sit on my lap. Come on. Watch the cord. Come sit here. Okay.
What up?
Come here. Do you remember what the advice that you told me was back in the middle of the pandemic when I was getting very frustrated working for other people because I was saying, no one's understanding what I'm doing. Nobody is sort of like accepting my art on the first 10 passes, and then eventually it doesn't become my art anymore. What'd you tell me?
Stop working for other people. Work for yourself.
And genuinely, that you can get off. Okay. I love you. Caleb's a great artist. Everyone go stream him. His name's Caleb Dot like a period. But Caleb gave me this advice that was like, you're so frustrated working for other people, do your own shit. Like,
yeah,
it's cool to be a photographer. It's cool to be someone like White Trash Tyler, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like, you could also fucking be who you are. You know what I mean? And like, I started doing my own shit, and then like the universe, or what you would call the universe, I call God, whatever it is that you whatever that too, it keeps affirming. Oh, sorry, my dog just went crazy. Vincent. The universe keeps affirming that, right? So like, yeah. I turned my attention to Muse stuff, and it's almost like it's like. There are times in your life where you realize like fate's sort of like lined up for you. And it was like, I hadn't done Muse stuff for like 8 months. And then all of a sudden I was like in my room nonstop for weeks designing Muse stuff. Hadn't put out anything, hadn't promoted anything. And then like, without me doing anything, all of a sudden Kylie Jenner starts wearing my stuff, Yeah. And it's like, it's almost as if something in my brain or like something in the universe had said, start working on Muse stuff because you're going to need a back catalog of stuff when this happens. And I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
So,
do you know how she got?
I do now. I didn't at first. When I did all those interviews and I was like, I don't know, I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
I really didn't know. But I ended up getting a DM from Stassi Baby, if you know who that is.
Yeah.
It's like Kylie's BF,
Mm-hmm.
BFF, not boyfriend, best friend. And she told me how it happened. So I'm friends with this girl by the name of Sydney Carlson, who's like influencer, artist, model, really genuinely really cool girl. Like friends off of not even Muse stuff, friends off of my poetry. Like she's a real one. And like she's awesome. And like we went to her birthday party. Genuinely love that girl. So what happened was I had been sending Sydney stuff always, and Sydney had one of my sweatshirts. Stassi liked it and took it. Then months later, Kylie saw it in Stassi's closet and took it off Stassi.
Sweet. So
my sweatshirt was like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants all the way to Kylie Jenner. And then not only is Kylie Jenner wearing it, but she's wearing it, on the biggest platform possible, and it's like, she's wearing it in this like 12-minute video where, it was #1 trending on YouTube. And it's like, my phone has never blown up quite in the way that happened.
Yeah. What was the, like, do you remember how you first found out?
Of course. I was sitting right here. It's so funny. I was playing video games like a guy I hadn't seen in a really long time, which is such a funny way to like, I'm on the phone with this guy when I find this out.
Yeah.
But like, when you do this, you'll have, and you've had it too, I'm sure, where you have like this moment where it's like, oh shit, this person's wearing my thing. That's fire. You get that like adrenaline boost, right?
Yeah.
Never quite like this. I'm sitting on the couch. I start getting a million messages. My phone's blowing up on Instagram, on my phone, screenshots, Kylie in my sweatshirt on her YouTube. And like, then people start calling me and I'm like, guys, I gotta go. And I hang up on the people. And then it was raining outside. And I was just like, I'm a big walker. I love to walk. It like helps me clear my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just like threw on some sweats and went outside and walked in the rain. And that was like, that's just sort of how I figured out. And then I was here, I called Caleb over and his girlfriend, and my girlfriend was here, and we all got together and we're like, you know, they helped me a lot actually. I was just like, okay, what, you know, you're only going to get this maybe one time in your life unless you do it right, you know? So it's like, what do we do now? And I will genuinely say, like, I have no regrets about how we handled that time. We made the most out of it. I think you handled
it very well.
Because I think, thank you. But it could have been really corny. It could have been like, you know, we way overused the cosign. We could have been whatever. And I think like somehow, by the grace of God, we were able to find the exact right amount to sort of use it.
Yeah, I think you filled it up as much as you could, but you didn't pour over at all. Totally.
Yeah. And it was nice because then like, obviously word gets back to Kylie because she's a human too. She sees the news about her because we were in like the national news about it, you know? And like, then Kylie asks for more stuff and posts again. And it's like, now I have a relationship where I can send people like that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's really banging. And then people notice off of that, and then like clothes get on other people. And it really is just like you were saying earlier, a lot of times in your career, you feel like this is the one thing that's going to change things for you. And I've felt the same where it's like, finally, I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to feel validated in my art. And like, I want to say this, I don't care at all about being rich. Like being rich sounds great, right? Who doesn't want to, you know, be able to be comfortable? I genuinely just want to feel comfortable that I can make art for the rest of my life and support myself.
No, I think that's exactly how I feel.
That's like my number one dream, is to be able to be like, okay. And I haven't had to have a real job in like 4 or 5 years because of this. Like this is what I do full time, you know? And it's like that Kylie thing was like one of those moments where it was like, okay, you know, everything's aligning for me. I can do this for the rest of my life.
Damn. And
it's been really great since. Again, I feel like we used it to the best of our ability, and like moving forward, it's just like, you know, I feel like a lot of times as doing this stuff or doing anything creative, like even making an album, like you feel like you put something out and then you're like, fuck, I have nothing on my plate, you know? And that those times where like we had talked about after a collection, you feel horrible. But like for me, because I like feel very ambitious and I like need to keep going, that's what makes me happy. I feel like for the first time ever this last year, cause it's literally, has it been a year since that happened? It's been like almost, which is fucking crazy. It's been like almost a year since that happened. Yeah, it's really
like coming up on that.
Yeah. And it's like, I haven't had to, I've been able to have my foot on the gas the whole time, which is like, you know, one thing I say to myself in my head all the time is the reward for good work is more work.
Yeah.
And it's like, I love the fact that I get to be able to keep doing this because of that, you know?
Yeah.
And again, that's like, I couldn't have gotten that Kylie. Like that's for me, that's like, that's God's, you know, giving me the layup. But mm-hmm. like for whatever you call it, fate, you know, the universe, the stars aligning, whatever it is, it's like, that's my way of like feeling like the powers, you know, the spiritual powers are telling me like, this is what you're supposed to do, you know, because you know, that's a miracle. I know that sounds corny, but like, it's true. Like that stuff getting on her is a miracle.
Yeah. Especially with the way it happened, like you not even being aware of it at all.
No.
Like,
and I put out that sweatshirt over a year before that happened.
Yeah, that's what I realized. I was like, that's like one of his older things.
Yeah. And now it's like the only thing people, not the only thing people buy the stuff, but like people fucking love that thing. And I remember making it and just being like, it's like, if you look at like whatever, if you don't know who I am and you're listening to this and you go back and look at the stuff I've made, I try to make everything have meaning. And like, I don't like doing anything that like feels meaningless just for the sake of like looking cool. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I like there to be meaning behind the stuff I'm doing. And it's like, this sweatshirt is probably the one, it has meaning, but it's like probably the least amount of meaning of anything I've ever done.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? That speaks like how people respond to your work separate of you. Like somebody could look at that and really love it and maybe they find meaning in it. Like they attach to it.
Which has taught me a big lesson has been, I now know, I can tell you before some of my stuff comes out what's going to sell and what isn't.
Yeah.
But I still put out the stuff that doesn't sell because it's validating for me. Like that stuff ends up being my favorite stuff.
Yeah, I feel the same way. A lot of stuff that I put out that doesn't sell is my favorite.
Yeah, and you know the stuff that's going to sell and it's going to be a banger and you make it. And like there are also other times, right? Like with the Mood sweatshirt when Kylie wore it, there's a million opportunities to sell out, you know, and like do the big grab, whatever it was, and like we really fought to make sure that it was like never corny. You know what I mean? Because like, it's the same thing with like whatever you do in this world now, it's forever. You don't get to like go back and redo it, and you can't rewrite that, you know? So it's like, we have one chance to get this right.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you feel like, well, you mentioned like you were thinking about it, but was it really this feeling like, okay, were you worried that you wouldn't handle it right when you initially learned?
Gosh, yeah. You can ask.
I would definitely be way worried.
Dude, you can ask. I mean, I'm a very anxious guy. I like, you know, I'm super anxious. I'm a panic attacky kind of guy.
Yeah.
And like, I was so nervous all the time. I literally, like, I could tear up thinking about it now. I literally would just like cry because it's like, I don't want to mess this up, because like, this is all I've worked for. Like my whole life, I've given up everything that I thought that I cared about for, you know, 20 years to do this. And it's like, when the fucking light's on you, it may never be on you again if you don't handle it right. You know what I mean? And so I felt immense pressure to do that. And still, even right now, right? Like everything I do after that, there feels like there's like a new pressure on that I've never felt.
Yeah.
And it's good, you know, it refines what you do. It makes you feel better. But yeah, I mean, I was so anxious, but I also, to that point, like, I do feel like when that happened, there was like some sort of like divine energy that came over me that was like, it's time to work, baby. Like, you know, put your head down and work and like get it done. Like I was quite literally getting out of bed, beginning to work, like the second my feet hit the floor. I'm serious, I'm not exaggerating. Eyes open, feet on the floor, working immediately until it was time to get back in bed, which is not healthy. Like you got to make time for yourself.
Yeah.
But at that time, you know, like for that few month span when that was all happening, it was essential.
Yeah, it's sustainable for a bit. It definitely drains you out, and I'm sure you felt that way.
Totally. And after all the Kylie stuff, you know, ended and things started to like, we did like another Skizzy collab and things started to like tie down for the year, and it was the holidays. I actually had like a major panic attack that was like the type of panic attack that shakes you for like 6 months. Mm-hmm. I'm still feeling the effects of it. Like I can't sleep even still because of it. I have like all my panic attacks sort of like at night because whatever reason, I'm, you know, deep-seated childhood stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, like you hit that rock bottom, and for me, I've found that like my life really is roller coastery. I know that the healthiest way for it to be would be like a straight line, you know, like maybe like an angle upwards straight line. But like, you know, if you want to hit those highs, you got to experience the lows.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a fundamental part of human
which is why I'm a drug
existence.
addict. Well, like former drug addict, because like I was fine feeling like a king, you know, if I was going to almost die after. And I also will say, like, if you're listening to this and you're a kid, I'm sober now. Like I don't think you should ever do drugs. And I don't think it's like, I'm not saying that on some corny, like, don't do drugs, kids. I'm saying it like genuinely, like I thought because of all the artists that I watched went crazy. Mm-hmm. I thought that if I wanted to be a real artist, I had to go crazy. And not the case at all. And like some of the most successful artists that you may not even know of, right? Some of the behind the scenes guy, like they're fine. They're not killing themselves every day off of the people that are writing the music for those artists that are like, you know, fucking zanned out right now. And they're like zanned out on stage, right? There are people that are sober behind the scenes writing that music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that idea that you have to be like a tortured artist isn't true. And I'm still working through that in therapy nonstop, right? Because, and that sounds really dumb now that after I say it, it sounds dumb, but it's just like, I really did think that like if I wanted to be a successful artist, I had to kill myself.
Yeah. I haven't heard it to like I've heard similar people say things. I felt that same way observing people. It's like these people, I think the artist is always pushing to the edge.
Totally.
And sometimes that edge is within like substance use. And it can transfer to other things, which like your work. Like totally. You can put, which it sounds like you've done, I've done myself, just push that work as far as you possibly can. Yeah. And then you feel that crash afterwards. I think it's just a feature of the artist to push things to the edge.
Yeah. And it's not good, you know? I mean, like, you know, if we get into the drug stuff, like my thing is like, I wasn't like doing drugs to like have fun. Mm-hmm. I was like, let me see how fucked up I can get. You know? Yeah. Let me see if I can like drink an entire bottle of this and then like take a handful of these and be fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is scary.
Yeah, it's
and it's like,
scary.
And it's like, you know, for me, like being completely vulnerable, like that leads you to be like, you'll be like face down, you know, on a bathroom floor, you'll be naked, and like someone that you love is like looking at you with disgust. And it's like, I've been there, you know what I mean? Like I've seen that shit, and you can push it too far, you know? And like you said, it's the same with anything in life. But I think like specifically our lane, a lot of like, there's a lot of drug abuse, and there's a lot of like casual drug abuse. Like, you know, a lot of kids are like, oh, I just do this and this. And it's like, I just do like a little coke, you know? And it's like, you don't just do a little coke, like you do coke. And that's fine. No judgment on people. If you can handle coke, you know, like you're a superhero. But like, and sorry, that didn't come out right. No, you're not like, don't do coke. But it's like, I can't, you know? And like, I'm not ashamed of that. And I did think for a while, I thought it would ruin my career when I got sober. I thought that it would be really hard to be in rooms. And like, I was going to tell you this earlier, you asked me if I'd, you know, have to be careful now, right? Yeah. Being sober. And it's like I was shooting a music video, you know, right before the pandemic in January. And like, I was sitting it was closed quarters music video, just me on camera and the artist. And he was like smoking weed, and he was like, mimicking this, you know, it was this treatment that we wrote to sort of be like, you know, that place that I've been a number of times, which is like getting fucked up to like get fucked up and then like regretting it as soon as you do it. But he's smoking weed, and like we're in a bathroom, you know, and I'm wearing like an N95 mask because I'm a pussy. And like, I don't, you know, I'm scared because like, that's what I have panic attacks now, bad, you know, and if I ever feel like I'm fucked up or like out of my mind or out of control of my body, I feel immediate panic. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to feel like I've got a secondhand high off this, but I've got to finish the music video. We got one shot in this like house that we've sort of like, you know, gutted to do this. And so we finished the music video, and there's like a big like after party with like everyone where they're like, they made like this like great chicken curry, and like everyone was hanging out. And we were in Silver Lake in LA, and I was like, yeah, I got to leave. I literally can't be in this building because I'm going to freaking explode. I'm having a panic attack. And I remember just like walking around LA for a while, and then like miraculously I like look up, and I'm like a street over from one of my like best buddies' houses, this guy Yoshi Flower. I walk into his house, he helps me calm down. But it's like, I do have to be careful. And everywhere you go, people are smoking weed. And it's like, if you're not going to do that, you know, it
that
takes
makes
effort.
it difficult. Yeah.
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 Even at concerts, right? Like even being in a music venue, it like smells like weed. And if weed is your trigger for panic attacks, like
it's all around there.
Yeah.
Like how are you going to do
that.
anything? Like what if you want to go to a concert,
totally.
like you're saying?
And I'm like 2.5 years sober now. I've, you know, figured it out. I've like navigated those situations, and I'm working through it to like, it's unhealthy for me to not be okay around stuff, right? Like it's not good to be afraid of things. And I don't want to be that guy. So I do have to work through that. Right. Mm-hmm. But like, it just takes time, you know? And I do think like, if I could go back, I wouldn't change anything because I'm very happy with my life right now. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if I was living someone else's life, I would tell them that like, you don't have to hit rock bottom to like figure out where rock bottom is. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
That's an interesting sentiment. You don't have to hit rock bottom to figure out where it is. Yeah. What do you want to expand on?
Yeah, like a lot of kids will like, we test you know, when you're young, you test your body's limit a lot. Yeah. You know, we all do it. Everybody, you know, in college gets too drunk one time, you know, and they figure that out. But it's like, once you find that rock bottom, right? Let's say you get too drunk, you figure out your body hates that. You feel like shit. There's like 8 levels below that. And like, you don't actually have to figure those out. Like you don't have to be you don't have to be Curious George and figure out where the true bottom is, because as someone that's found the true bottom, like it's like one of those things where we talked about with my back. There are certain places that you can like fuck yourself up enough that it takes a long time to come back from. And some people don't ever come back from them. Yeah.
And that's really rock bottom. That's as
Truly.
rock bottom as rock bottom gets.
Truly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I did it. I would hit rock bottom and then I'd hit rock bottom again. I overdosed more than once, you know? Like and I think that comes with, you know, when we talk about how we're like overly ambitious, right? Mm-hmm. I felt unstoppable, and like you have to learn that you're stoppable. Like there are things that will get in your path that will stop you, you know, and that has to be okay. And I think like as a young person, especially now, right, with like the pace that everything moves at, there's a lot of pressure to like fit in with that, especially with drug culture, right? Because those and like art have historically been synonymous, but like, yeah, you don't have to do that to fit in.
Yeah. Which I think is a good thing to express, because I know that there's people out there who do struggle with like using drugs in a bit positive way. And I feel like you're saying, it can be very scary, the idea of sobering up, because you're like, I'm going to lose friends over this. I'm going to not be able to hang out with these people. So I think that you, and I know that another prominent creative who's sober is Blondie McCoy. He talks a lot about it.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you guys are able to do that.
And I think I also want to say, like, if you're not sober, right, and you're like getting fucked up, whatever, whether you're fine, you're not fine, whatever that is, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Right. Like, everybody's path is different. It's the same with the ambition thing. That is like, right when I said I felt like I had a lot of ambition, I wanted all my friends to have ambition. I also, when I first got sober, I like, you know, and that's common. You want everyone to feel that.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. It's not healthy. Everyone's on their own path, and everyone's got to figure it out on their own, you know, and
sure.
figuring it out for some people is like, oh, I can smoke weed and be fine. And that's okay. You know?
Yeah. I think, I'm a huge proponent of like, you should have the freedom to make the choices
absolutely.
to use these if you want.
Totally.
And like, I know a ton of people who use it,
and they're okay.
It's completely okay.
Totally.
Yeah. But it can be disorienting. I feel like I personally have not had troubles with it, so you can expand on it, but it can be disorienting when you're the one not having. I feel like it can be disorienting when you're the one not having the same experience because you're struggling with the substance.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that, you know, that got me to where I am have been really isolating, right?
Yeah.
And like, one of those things obviously is like when you're in college and all your friends are like drinking at the bars and it's like fun, right? Yeah. And you're literally like, you know, chugging as much as you can because you're like, oh, I'm gonna get the most fucked up. Or like, before you meet up with everyone, you like smoke as much weed as you can, and you're like, I'm gonna see if I can like not let it show how fucked up I am, right?
Yeah.
It is disorienting, and it's really isolating. And that's what I found is like, that's when I get to like really dark spots, is when I truly let myself like isolate like that.
Yeah. What's interesting is that, like you expressed earlier, being nice to people is the opposite of that, because it brings so much people into your life. Yeah. So it's almost like those two things have been like poles in your life in a weird way. It's like you have this strong urge to be as nice as possible to people because it helps you make genuine connections and not be isolated. Yeah. But then there's this other extreme side of your life where you feel very isolated.
Yeah, and I also will say, like, I'm not always nice to everyone. And like, I have to let that, you know, like, if you're listening to this and you don't like me, there's probably, you know, like, there might be a valid reason. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, everybody has made mistakes in their life or treated people poorly. I know that, like, you know, when I was getting out of control with drug addiction, I like really messed up some friendships, you know, and you know, I wasn't doing what I could to make everyone feel the best possible. I was doing whatever I could to make me feel the best possible. So it's like, you're right. Like, I think to that point, a big like temple in my life has just been like a lot of like really contradictory, sort of like moral or like, you know, like personal feelings that end up like really fucking me up, but also end up making, you know, giving me a really unique perspective to make art from.
Yeah. That's what I was going to bring up. It's like, what do you feel like you pull from that a lot in your work? Well, I know you definitely do, but expand on how you pull from that.
Well, I mean, like, there's a number of ways, right? Like, one of the ways is like, you know, my personal belief is like in like a sort of, more of from a Christian standpoint, like religiously, I feel like I believe in Jesus, that sort of stuff. I fucking hate church. Like, you know, and I have so many reasons why I hate church that I think are super valid. And I feel confident enough in that to like go on what, like, you know, I could debate a pastor about that because I know enough about it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But like, there are other things where it's like, you know, I do want to be the nicest to people possible. And I want people to leave, you know, their interactions with me feeling special. And also sometimes I fucking hate people. Like, sometimes I'm really bad about how much I don't like people.
Yeah.
And like, you know, now I can sit back and say that I like want everyone to win. There have been times in my life where I genuinely didn't want everyone to win, and I wanted everyone to lose because I was losing. You know what I mean? And like those, you know, those contradicting sort of like dots sort of like are the basis for most everything I do. You know what I mean? And what's funny about us bringing this up now is like, that's the only meaning behind the moods hoodie, is these like contradicting sort of like, you're happy, these like moods that you sort of go through that sort of like overlap with each other at the end of the day. And it's like, I'm the type of guy who will be saying something and in his head knowing that he's bullshitting. Right. And like, that's really hard. And I have to work through that. But again, it's an interesting perspective to like make art from. It's like,
For sure.
yeah, but and you know, there are, again, I'm polarizing, I'm loud, and like, I love attention. So it's like, I don't always make the right decision on certain, like, you know, interacting with people or like making someone feel special. But again, I do know that that's what works the best.
Yeah.
Whether that's the decision I make or not.
Totally. And I think we're all flawed. Like, I have my best values. Do I follow those best values
Totally.
at all times? Probably not. Well,
Yeah.
actually, definitely not.
Sure.
Like, I wish I did, but it's just so hard. We're so
Yeah.
inconsistent, just people in general.
Yeah, and I think that we hold each other to a standard that's like expects each other to be consistent. And like, you know, I've found that like the best friends of mine are the people who I can speak freely to on stuff. Like if I can, my girlfriend's in the room, so she's not gonna like that I say this, but like if I'm one day like really hot on our relationship and one day really cold on our relationship, I like need to be able to express that to people, because it's like, or like to my friends, right? Because it's very real that people are in relationships one day and they love the person they're with, and the next day they don't want to be with them, and then the next day they want to be with them again, or the next day they kind of want to be with them again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's realistic. And I think that if we're talking about like true tent poles in my art, like that's another one, is like, it's not so fucking black and white as people want it to be. Like, I was just at a wedding a couple days ago, and it's like, I have such a hard time with like the idea of anything being like truly permanent, which is like definitely a character flaw. But like, every decision we make has moral gray area always. You know, everything you say to someone has moral gray area. You know, every whatever that you do is gray. It's like, whether you believe that there's black and white ethical like boundaries in the world, which I don't.
There's not.
But like, beyond like hurting people, but even at the same time, you're always going to be able to find, you know, gray area in everything. And we're taught as kids that there's no gray area, and it's really unhealthy, because you grow up and then you're like, there's no actual black and white in anything. There's no good and evil. You know, it's like, how do I operate in this world that fundamentally isn't what I was told it would be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, everything is gray. I actually had a conversation a few nights ago with a friend, and it wasn't heated. It was just, we were very adamant about what we were talking about, and he's a very smart guy. We went back and forth for a while, but the conversation ended with, the world is extremely complex, and we should question everything. If you think that you have an answer for anything and it's very black and white, you're probably missing something.
Totally. I agree. And that's my thing about like, when I say like, you know, I believe in the Christian faith, right? It's like, if you're somebody that believes in sort of any faith, you got to see the gray in everything that you believe. Like, you know, everything that most of these fucking, you know, people that people see as like messiahs in history, they all like, you know, they operated in moral gray area a lot of the time, right? It's like, you know, you can say that it's wrong to, you know, I don't even want to get into it, but I agree. I think that, you know, there's too many people who think that things are black and white, and truly what thinking that things are black and white does is it makes two sides, and it makes both sides think that they're right, when truly they're both operating on, you know, in the gray.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just like last night, man, I was I keep wanting to say like things that I shouldn't say. I don't want to like hurt anybody's specifics feelings, but, and again, that's like, yeah, anyways, there is gray in everything. And I do think that's like where a lot of my art comes from. Even like me saying earlier in the podcast, it's like I would probably like, you know, do whatever with whoever, like in my sexuality. That's how I sort of operate things. I also like, there's a part of me that like wants to love one person forever. And then there's a part of me that wants to, you know, be in a, you know, polyamorous relationship. And then there's like a million parts of me that are like, you can never handle that. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't want to be one of those people that thinks, that like, I know any better than anyone, you know, or like I've got it figured out.
Yeah.
I just sort of can take from my experiences what I know and then do my best with it. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's all you can do.
Totally. But there are people who really do think that they know what's right and wrong.
100%. And those people are mistaken. I'm sorry.
Totally.
Like, I think that's like it's like, I mean, that's like the Socrates quote. It's like, I'm the wisest man in the world because I know that I know nothing, or something like that.
Totally. Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
like, it expresses the same sentiment. I probably didn't get that verbatim, but it's close.
Yeah.
I think the artist, just like as an archetype, sits in the complexity.
They have to.
You have to. That's where the magic comes from. I mean, it's like nothing's worth creating anything about if it's like very black and white, and it's like very much this is it.
Yeah.
No, there has to be interpretations.
And
there
conflict.
has to be, there has to be conflict.
Yeah. And I think that's where like a lot of art that moves people comes from, is from a place where it's like, you see the gray in it, you see the complexity and like what's being done, and you're like, that actually reflects the real world. As opposed to like, and I have read a lot of stuff about this where it's like, we love superheroes now because it's like a black and white answer, right? It's like, this person's right and this person's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I think there's room for art like that feels cathartic because it makes the world seem like it's what we want it to be, but that's not sort of what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a very much like, I mean, that's just art made for the mass market.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Which
art made for the mass
is
market.
tempting.
It very much
Very
is. It's like,
tempting.
oh, here's where I can make all this money.
Yeah, totally. And that's what's weird about this is like, a lot of kids think like, oh, I'm going to be the next Kanye, which obviously all of us want to be that. But it's like, I'm going to be the next Kanye who has my unadulterated vision that is like, makes me dummy rich and like everyone loves. And it's like, what people fail to realize is that like, if it's your true vision, there's going to be just as many people that hate it. And oftentimes you're literally going to make way less money. Right. Mm-hmm. Like I have a lot of friends that work for like bigger fashion, brands. Like I'm not even talking like streetwear brands. I'm talking like big companies that make like suits and shit. And it's like, I hear from them all the time about how, they're rich, but it's like, is it as fulfilling?
That is always the question. Yeah. You're working, are they designers?
Just depends. Some of them.
Some of them are designers. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up because like there's a very good chance that I'll end up working a similar
that's
job.
like the path that you're on.
Yeah.
But again, I also know people who are, very, they love their work. Like my cousin Willie is one of the designers at J. Crew,
Mm-hmm.
and he does the illest shit. And like every time I see it, I'm like, dude, you're banging. I love what you do.
Yeah.
And there's room for that too.
Yeah.
But
it's just like, be honest with yourself and like
totally
do what you know is pulling you towards.
Totally.
And if you end up in a position where you're making a bunch of money, but you're not really pulled towards it, you're just gonna be miserable.
Yeah, I will say that I do feel that, but part of me also feels like this is like the part of me that's been poor for so long,
mm-hmm.
that makes me feel like, oh, if only I just had money,
Yeah.
There's always that you're gonna fight off, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I've been up and I've been down, and I know that when I'm like, I feel the most validated by, making art that I love, not money.
Yeah.
For instance, right? Like I can make a bunch of money off of a certain design, or, like the other day I put out a poem that I wrote that was performed by my friend on my Instagram, and like, it got like a mild amount of likes. You know how the Instagram algorithm is?
It is crazy right now.
It's terrible. But like, that's one of the most validating things I've done in months.
Yeah.
And I'm not validated by people DMing me about it or validated by whatever it is. I'm validated because I listen to it and I'm like, this is fucking moving. This makes me feel something. And if my art makes me feel, hopefully it makes other people feel.
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah, that's true. I've been working on fine art recently, like prints and acrylic paintings, and I'm like spending a lot of time with these pieces that I'm working on.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to like, the more I spend time with the work, I notice that it's like, I don't know, I get moved by spending time with it. So I'm getting very excited about this stuff I'm working on. That is like, and I'm like, hopefully if people sit with this work I'm making, they'll feel the same way.
Man, I envy that. I envy like, I'm so bad at like any like true physical art. You know what I mean? Like I have existed in a world that's like completely online always, or writing, whatever it is. Right. But, I've always wondered what it would feel like to be like moved by my physical art, like the way, you know.
Yeah.
It's gotta be great. It's gotta be really like meditative almost.
Yeah, it is, because you spend so much time with it, and you're thinking the whole time. But also, it's like this perfect. Like I can make theoretical art that makes complete sense and is like a maze that you that you work through and you discover at the end piece. But the stuff that I'm working on is far more interesting to me, because it's like it's not that. It's part theory, but part I'm letting the process come up with the fruits of it, and I'm discovering the fruits along with the process.
Come. That's why I like writing, because it comes out as it sort of happens, and it feels like it came from you, but somewhere inside of you that you didn't know existed. You know? Yeah,
I feel the same. It's interesting that you bring that up, because I feel the same way about writing. I had an amazing writing professor at Kent this year, and it's actually a year-long class it's called an honors colloquium, and he taught me to love writing. Like I really enjoy I'm not writing poetry, but I really like just laying thoughts out, because I think it helps me properly articulate like what I'd like to say.
Yeah.
Which
And it preps you to talk better later, because you like have sorted through your thoughts.
100%. It's a wonderful art form.
Yeah.
And I was gonna ask, do you read poetry for the most part, or do you read novels? Do you read nonfiction? Are you reading much? What's the word? Because you are writing.
Yeah. So for me, like a lot of, I could bullshit and be like, I like this person and this person. You know, I've read books. Who hasn't? But like, I love movies. Yeah. I'm watching, genuinely not exaggerating, 2 full-length movies a day.
Yeah.
And I'm watching a lot of TV. I'm not watching the regular stuff. I'm watching the stuff that, I am watching I'm watching the Marvel movies. You know me. I'm catching up with all the Marvel shit, but like, I'm also watching the stuff that feels really moving. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening. I'd listen to every song that comes out that's like by someone that I could remotely care about. I'm constantly finding new stuff that way. I'm inspired a lot by my friends, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is something I've longed for my whole life, but have only recently gotten, where I'm in a community of artists where like I'll get a cut of a friend's song, or like, you know, whatever that's unfinished, then it will make me feel like writing, or it will inspire an art piece, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I could be inspired by like a video of Kanye freestyling, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't read. No,
100%. I get it.
I read stuff I like every once in a while, if someone sends me a poem, I'll read it. I'll like it. Right. Like, whatever, you know, I have tons of books upstairs that like I pretend I'm gonna read someday, and maybe I will. But like, I love movies, dude, and I don't think it's wrong to like movies, you know? No,
I think film is like a great art form in its own right, and it's so new too. Like that's what's super fascinating about it. It's so new. Yeah, like writing has been going on for thousands upon thousands of years, but like this is like the past 100 or so.
And there's still people that are like cracking new stuff in movies, like undone stuff. Like I watched this. Obviously, I'm not like, you know, creating fire here, but like or like discovering the wheel. But I watched Nomadland recently. Yeah. And like Chloe Zhao, what she does, unbelievable. Like where she has all these non-actors in her movies that are like giving the best performances ever, because that's coming from like a real place of who they are. She's like casting people really as they are. It's like, who's been doing that? You know what I mean? Or like you watch something like Borat, and it's like, this movie fucking rocks, but also like he's saying some like really meaningful shit, like some really important shit, you know? Yeah. And there's just like, and I think it's way more fun. And this is like in all forms of art, but like for me personally, way more fun to be a lover of art than a hater.
100%.
Like I'll watch any movie for the most part, besides besides Spiral from the Book of Saw that just came out. I'll watch any movie besides that movie and find some redeeming quality about it. You know, I can look at something and be like, you know, any of this shit's beautiful because people spent, you know, years on it. But it's like, even with music, whatever it is, you know, it's so much better to be a lover of it.
Yeah.
You get inspired by stuff you never think you would. Like, if I was like a hater, I wouldn't be coming on here and saying I love the 1975 because that's not cool. I mean, maybe it is, but like, I love that music and I don't care if it's cool or not. I actually like it. Or like the movie Tenet. People may not like it because they can't hear what they're saying, but I love that movie because it's fucking fun, you know? And that's okay, you know?
Yeah, there's just so much. And if you immediately were to denounce the work because you dislike it, you write it completely off, you're gonna be missing out on 1,000 things that you could have pulled from.
Totally. And like lessons learned and like different like inspirational things in your own art, you know? It's like, I would say, like last night, for instance, I watched the movie 500 Days of Summer, and I haven't written in like a couple days. I just haven't felt moved to. I watched that movie, fucking my heart felt like it was coming out of my chest at the end, even though I've seen it 10 times. And I wrote like 6 poems and they were bangers. And it's like, you know, it feels great to do stuff like that. And, you know, I could act like I'm too good to watch a movie like that, or like La La Land, or like, you know, conventional romantic comedies like Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve. But like at the end of the day, that stuff's good art. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, well, before the podcast, we were talking about Sundance. And
Totally.
I don't know any of the films that are in there. Which ones had you most excited?
So I saw nearly every movie at Sundance this year. I like made an effort to see everything that I could. Some stuff to be on everyone's radar that will come out shortly that's really good is Edgar Wright, the guy that directed Baby Driver, did this documentary called The Sparks Brothers. That's really, or I think it's just called Sparks. Very good. The best movie from the entire festival was this movie called On the Count of Three, which is there's this actor by the name of, if you're listening to this right now and you like movies, but you feel like you've seen everything. There's this actor by the name of Christopher Abbott who was in the TV show Girls, which is one of my favorite shows. But everything that he's done is a hit. And like, he's the next, like, he's going to be the next like Timothée Chalamet type. Even though he's older, he's going to like burst onto the scene and people are going to be like, oh, this guy's good in everything that he does. But he's the star of that movie, and he's got like, do you remember when Good Time came out with Robert Pattinson and everyone wanted to look like him? Or like Place Beyond the Pines and everyone wanted to look like Ryan Gosling? Mm-hmm. I think that when On the Count of Three comes out, everyone's going to want to look like Christopher Abbott in it. That was a heater. I remember there was one, I got to watch the premiere of Judas and the Black Messiah, which is like definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. I think that Lakeith is like, come on, everything he does is good, and Daniel, everything he does is good too, and the guy that directed it, Shaka Khan, is like, I look forward to whatever he's gonna do next, you know. But those are really good, and then there was like other stuff that's more obscure. There was this foreign movie called I think it was called One for the Road, that was very good. You know, the more movies I watch, the more I learn that like it's okay to not like stuff and to like stuff, but like, again, everything has sort of like a redeeming quality to it. But like, I used to think, because I, you know, wanted to be a lover and not a hater, I used to think I had to like love everything too. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel like that anymore, which is why I can confidently say I don't like the movie Spiral from the Book of Saw, which I saw last night in theaters, and it wasn't good. And respect to you, Chris Rock, love you, man, but that movie is not the one.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it, but my dog is every time he sees another dog, it's lights out. Especially a dog that could beat him up. He's like, let me try and fight this dog right now. Gotta fight, gotta prove myself.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's something I was gonna say about the movies. I can't remember.
You're trying to go back. You haven't been back in a while.
Oh yes, the movie theater. I haven't been back to the movie theater. I was telling Lauren on the way here that when I go to a movie theater without a mask on and watch a movie, that's when I'll know.
That's when you'll know it's over.
That's when I'll know.
I love that, by the way. I feel the exact same.
Yeah. I really miss it.
Me too.
It was a lot of fun.
It's I like walking a lot, and I also love going to the movies. When I'm like on my own, I'll genuinely go to the movies like 3-4 times a week, because it's like, and especially now, right, that the pandemic's like sort of, you know, we're getting vaxxed. We're both halfway vaxxed.
Yep.
It's like, as it sort of comes to an end, and I can go back to the movie theater, like, I'm going to go back every chance I get. Like, every time there's a movie in the theater right now, because they're all releasing on streaming at the same time, I'm going to go see it in the theater. Because it's like, and also the more I do this shit, the more I realize that like real people make money off of movie ticket sales. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, the money that you spend on, I used to be a big bootlegger of movies. If the government's listening, I'm lying. I'm not lying. But I used to, you know, watch movies all the time online, and now I'll always rent a movie, because it's like, let's say I love this movie Beginners, right? If I stream that movie illegally, it gets nothing. If I watch it, the money goes into whatever Fox Searchlight's pockets, you know? Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's getting sales is going to get recognized for the director to write another movie. Do you know what I mean? So like, all these people may not have deals with the, you know, the studios to make all their money, but I'm going to support the art because I want them to make more movies, you know?
Yeah, it's a simple fact. Do you feel like, do you collect any Blu-ray? Because I know Camden, who loves movies, has been getting into Blu-ray.
I have a couple Blu-ray only for like a couple heaters. If you look down there right now, I've got The Place Beyond the Pines, which is a good one. I've got Anchorman 2, which is, I just have that for sillies. I have, unpopular opinion, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero. I love the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, so I've got both of those on Blu-ray. Love those ones. But then I've got Django Unchained, which is Tarantino's finest.
Yeah, that's a really, really good movie.
Yeah, but I'm not a big like collector of things, just because like I have too much shit anyways. Yeah. You know, I don't do well at collecting, because like everything I do, I do it too much. Yeah. So it's like, if I get into collecting whatever, like there was a time we were talking about earlier before that like video games were really fun over the pandemic. And it's like, when I got into video games, I literally have like 10 video games on there I've never played. And it's like such a waste of money.
A lot of Switch games.
A lot of Switch games.
A lot of PS4 and some 5 games.
And some 5. Thanks for the.
I just shot that. Yeah.
Thanks
Anthony's
for the flex.
Got a 5 over here.
I got it on opening day. Would you believe it or not?
Really?
But yeah, so I don't really collect things like that, but I do. I got all the streaming services. Like, I have to, for some reason. I just like, I'm really am consuming so much content that it's like, also like, if you're one of the people that, you know, you go up to someone and you're like, yo, watch this, and they don't watch it. If you tell me to watch something, I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to let you know what I thought of it. Like,
yeah, that's the best. I struggle with movies in particular. Camden tells me so many movies to watch, and just because they're long, I'm the worst at it. So I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I want to be like you.
I think that I like movies because, honestly, like, for the same reason that I like drugs and I like writing, it's just like, you know, our lives become a lot sometimes, and I'm somebody that like feels a lot of emotion towards everything I'm doing, and like the ability to watch something and feel that emotion in a different setting is like, I love it. Like, that's why, again, 500 Days of Summer, I watched it last night, and I'm like, when I watch a movie like that, I'm really able to like put myself in that person's shoes and like feel a lot of emotion for that. And that's why I love them. I mean, it feels like a fucking trip every time. Mm-hmm. Which is why, while I was watching Sundance movies, when I was watching like 15 movies a day for 5 days, I got done and I was like, I don't know what's real anymore.
You spent so much time in
other worlds.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. I couldn't imagine. I've never watched that much movie straight.
I hadn't either. I had never done that. Like, it definitely wasn't good. And like a lot, you know what was weird is the theme of a lot of the Sundance movies was the same, because there were a lot of pandemic movies. Yeah. So like, the main 3 themes, I think, of the thing were like, well, honestly, the main theme was like dying, was like coming to terms with dying, or like escaping, and like finding a way to escape without truly escaping, were like 2 of the huge ones. But like, watching a lot of stuff about dying over and over again is like very surreal, especially like a lot of like meta stuff about dying, where it's like, this is what it might be like when you almost die, you know? Yeah. We watched this movie, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about a Hawaiian man who, and this is something I never thought of. Tell me if you've ever thought of this. I never considered it. He's like an old guy, And it was about him basically like knowing that he's going to die. He's an old guy, like really old. And he's dying and he's just waiting to die. And I never have thought about how when you're an old person, if you're lucky enough to like be really old, right? And like, you know, maybe you feel like you're dying, there could be like a week while you're dying, like a whole week.
Or even like a year or two.
Or years. That's crazy to me. And like this guy, well, the movie was fascinating because it like walked through the stages of his life and like who he was as a man at different stages and how he ended up dying alone, basically. But like considering dying and like laying there and remembering all of it, it's just like the biggest trip to me. I guess I looked this up and this could be totally wrong. And you know, if you're listening to this and I'm wrong, I'm right. And it's like, I read a thing that said like less than 1% of people die suddenly. I think like most
1%?
Yeah, I think it's like less than 1% of people die suddenly.
I could see that.
Which, you know, I had only ever considered dying suddenly. I had never thought about like dying for a long time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's so interesting. Like what is that late stage of life like? That's so
it's scary.
That's so well, I mean, every day could be your last day, and that's true for us.
Yeah.
But if we were to live that long, like that's a long ways out, and it's not something like I think about a lot. Like what will that be like?
You know what I will say? Like I think about it all the time. I am constantly like, now after seeing that, I was thinking about death a lot because like that's the kind of guy I am. I just like I'm always considering like, just because like for years I basically like assumed that I would be dead already, which is because whatever taught me that I thought that I had to die before, you know, 24 to be remembered as like a legend. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't feel that way anymore. But like, when you consider it all the time and you're thinking about how it might be, it's quite frightening.
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, the only inevitable things in life are birth and death. Like, and I know that's corny. You can, you know, you hear a sentence like that a million times in your life and you never really think about it. But if you really think about it, it's like, yeah, like you got to die someday. Like there's no way out of that. You don't get to fucking skip the line and not do that. You have to die some way. And I guess I'm especially like, even with like this today, doing this podcast, I always think a lot about how like, because of the internet, our legacies are forever now. Mm-hmm. Whether you're Joe Schmo off the street or you're, you know, Virgil Abloh, your life story is, you know, sort of told in who you were on the internet or will be left forever in that, right? And it's like an interview like this, you know, is like really telling in the kind of people we are at this time. Mm-hmm. But like I always want to look back at my body of work at the end of my life and be like, that was good. I told the story I wanted to tell, and like I didn't lie, you know?
Yeah. You want to be truthful. You want to feel like you said everything that you needed to say, and what you said was authentic, I feel like.
And worth saying, you know? There's like so much mumbo jumbo nowadays. Like we were just talking about that Polo G song. Is it called Rap Star? It's like that, you know, you could hear that and you could think that's a throwaway trap song. That song's like lyrically very good. And it's like, you could either, you know, like we talked about, you could do the mainstream shit that makes you a lot of money, or you could like tell a true authentic story. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I think that like telling the true authentic story is what's going to make me feel, you know, on that day that I die is going to make me feel like what I did mattered, whether people cared about it or not. I also often consider like that people might find out about your art way after you die.
Yeah.
I think about that a lot. Like there are a lot of artists in history who no one cared about when they were around.
Like most.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like all the people that are timeless, right? Yeah. That's how they're timeless. And it's like, that's okay. You know, that's why, again, you can't do this for any reason other than that you love it.
Yeah. Just put your head down and try to make the best work that you possibly can.
Yeah. And make sure that when you fucking look yourself in the mirror, you like yourself.
True.
You know? And you like what you're doing, you like who you are.
And that's when you're not doing that, it's very clear. Like,
and you know it.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah.
You're not deceiving anybody.
No, yeah. Especially not deceiving yourself, you know. And I've been that guy so many times in my life where I'm like, I look myself in the mirror and I fucking hate what I'm doing. And it's like, you know, having done that, I know that like only I can get myself out of that place. And when I do, life is much more full.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Is that like the perfect thing to end on, maybe?
I think it's great. Yeah.
I think it's great. Let's end on that.
Sweet.
It's been amazing, Antony.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, dude. I'm sure when the podcast is very large and continues to grow, I'd love to come back on. This is fun.
Yeah. Let's do it again. I'm looking forward to what's next for you. And that's it. Everybody, thanks for listening.